Hello guys, welcome back. So now we're going to take a look at creating this this circle here, this portal, and let's see how we can do that. So these are the same effects that we tried to create. I think what we've done is actually much better in terms of overall result. We just need to improve it a bit, and let's see how we can do that. Now that affects you guys can check out the video in more details, but you see a lot of layers moving in within the same flow. This is not a single element. There's a lot of details inside this. You can see it starts disturbed, and then over time it gets more and more perfect, and it starts swirling and attracting points toward the center. So it's a whole system working together to create that. And I'm going to create a new GeoNode, and let's reset a few things in the viewport. Light, background, this to 4, and don't need to be looking through the camera. And I want to create a circle, and this circle is going to be this circle is going to be my main source for the effects. I've set it to polygon, increase its size, just matching what I had before. And I'm going to change it to open, so that we just get the arc. Okay, and I'm going to create a point vault. I want to add some noise to this, and we cannot get all those swirly motions with just a single line as the source or as the effector to this. So the idea is we're going to create multiple copies of the same circle and combine all of them and have them rotate and circulate at different speeds. So let's create this noise here and deform the points a bit. Cool. I'm going to set it to 3D noise, and let's expose all these guys. Let's go back up, and I don't want it to be too sharp, so I'm going to lower the roughness, and this basically controls how sharp the noise is. I'm going to lower the frequency to 3, and the octaves to 3, and the frequency we're going to lower this as well. I just need something like that. I don't want it to be harsh or sharp by any means. And I'm also going to add a rest node. What this does, it copies the point position into an attribute called rest. We could do the same thing using this expression. So we're just storing the point position. I don't have a plan for this yet, but we may need it later. So let's copy this. I'm going to add some offset to change how the circle looks like. I'm going to do it one more time. Let's do it one more time. And let's merge all of them. Okay, you can see now we have multiple curves next to each other. And I'm going to add a transform node. I'm going to add some offset to make the circles cover a wider range. Something like that. Maybe this. Okay, let's maybe copy a couple more. Let's change the noise. Let's maybe increase its frequency. Something like that. This, and let's change this. Okay, and I'm gonna move them in and out a bit to add more complexity to the silhouette. I give it some thickness, maybe. I'm pretty sure there's many other ways to create this as well, but this is one way of doing it. So the next part is I want to add rotation to this. So I'm going to add a transform node, and we can use an expression to rotate them. We can say $f, and that will make them all rotate at the same speed. So if I play through, they're all rotating. I want them to rotate in clockwise, so I'm going to revert that. And I don't want all of them to rotate at the same speed, so I'm going to copy this, okay, and I'm going to increase its speed by 7 and add an offset to it. So let's say 700, and I'm going to copy this. Let's first take a look at the speed. Yeah, speed looks good. Cool. And I'm going to add an offset to each one of them, so they're not rotating at the same speed, and they're offsetted as well, so they don't look the same. Anything works, any offset, I mean, there's nothing special there. And I'm changing the speed a bit to get more variations. Let's see. Cool. So we have many curves doing some cool motions. And if we go back up and reduce this force here, this noise, to 0, we should get a perfect circle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a null node, and this is just an empty node. I'm going to create a parameter here, call this mult, for a multiplier. I'm going to hit apply, and now we have this slider. I'm going to set its default to 1. This global controller. I'm going to copy it and paste this value on all of these guys. See, this is -9. Yeah, it's fine. So I'm going to go back, paste relative reference, and then where it says -9, I think it's this one. I'm going to multiply it by 0, by -0.9. And what this allows me to do is I can now slide it to 0, and I have perfect circles, and I can increase it and it will change the noise on all of them, and this is, they will keep rotating without any issues, which is very cool. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use these guys as an emission to emit the particles. So let's set this back to 1, and let's compute the trail node. Sorry, let's compute the velocity using the trail node. And if we go back, hit play, view this guy, we have some cool velocities. Okay, let's resample, or let's put down a scatter node, and this will simply scatter points on the curves. Set it to 10,000. Pardon me. Set it to 10,000. I'm going to create a pop network. I'm just going to emit from this and see how it looks. And set this to use all points. And let's hit play. Cool. We have this now. Okay, great. Now, how do we keep them contained? Well, we can lower the velocity first. So let's set this to 0.025 and add a drag, pop drag of 0.1. Let's hit play. Cool. So they're much better, much calmer now. And what I like to do is I want to visualize the colors based on their velocity. I really like that display because it gives you a sense of what's happening. And I'm simply going to connect it here, and let's fit the range between 0 and 4, maybe 1, 3. Okay, overall everything is moving at the same speed. And I want to take one of the circles, maybe this one. I want to increase its speed to something higher, 7.25. So it just moves faster than all the others to create some more complex motions. We can also add another circle and have it go backward to create more complexity on this. But let's not do that now. We can do it later. Okay, so the other thing I want to do is, this emission is great. I'm going to keep that, but I'm also going to connect these curves, and I'm going to use themselves. I'm going to use them as a pop curve force. Let's say second input, and let's reduce the max influence to 0.2, maybe 0.4. Okay, and let's reverse them. I saw that see here, the curve is pointing this way. Don't want that. I'm gonna reverse them. If I dive in, they're reversed. Okay, and let's go back up, and it's doing something. So let's reduce the velocity to 0. I don't want any velocity at all. And I'm going to increase the suction scale. I'm going to set the orbit scale to 0 and the inherent velocity to 0. Okay, so they're calmer now. And where is it? I'm going to turn off the emission, the visibility. I don't want to see them. And that's the main idea of the effects. And see this guy that skips? That's actually a great thing for us to for it to happen, because we want some particles to skip either on the outside or on the inside, so we can affect them with a different force and attract them to the center. So let's play with these guys a bit more. I'm going to lower the point count to 2000, and let's dive back out. And here I'm going to set this to 0.25. The velocity, I'm going to set this to 2. I'm going to set this to 1. And let's hit play. And again, now the setup is set. I don't have a lot of controls or a lot more things to share with you guys. You just have to play with these values and to get the motion that you need. So maybe orbit scale would add more rotation. Yeah, definitely. It's adding more rotation, but it's also shooting outside. So let's increase the max influence of each curve, and let's increase the follow path. And I'm also going to add an attract node. Pop attract. I'm going to attract them to the center, which is currently set to 0, 0. And let's set it to 10 to clearly see the effect. Yep. So that's the attraction working there. And right now I see a huge amount of potential for this to create something really, really cool using just these this element. It may not look like a portal exactly, but this can create some really cool effects. So let's set that back to 2. Let's create a pop force. Let's set it to 2, see what we get. And those guys are escaping, which is fine. Okay, let's add. Let's go up. I think it's very, very important to view them like this, because if there is something moving inside at a faster speed, we will be able to detect that. Let's change this to dark. Let's hit play. All right, I think it's working. Okay, let's dive back in. I'm gonna create a pop group node. What this does, it allows us to group points using various features. And what I want to do is use a bounding box. I'm going to set it to a sphere, similar to the one in SOPs. I'm going to increase the sphere to account for pretty much everything here. I'm going to lower its thickness like that. Increase these two a bit. And then I want to group everything that is not inside this. Let's hit play. And it's not changing the color. Maybe it's working, but it's not changing the color, I think. And I want to create another attract, pop attract. And this time I want to only so outside. I'm going to call these points outside. After we group them, I'm going to create another attract that only affects the points that are outside. And if they get outside, I want to affect them using a much stronger force, which is 10 times stronger. See, now they're back. And everything stays there. But they do break out and in of the path because it takes some time for it to pick up, which is very, very cool. Now, one thing I want to change is the birth. I don't want them to live for too long. I want to add a little bit of randomization there. And this way, when they hit here, they don't accumulate forever. So they just create a center there, and that's it. Okay, let's go back up. Now, we've done the trail here, which is based off the so these guys, they use the velocity of the source. What I want to do is I want to let me think. I'm gonna turn off this guy. I want the points to be randomized along the curve length. And what I want to do is I'm gonna create a point VOP in here. Okay, and the trail right now is basically a tangent vector along the curve. So I'm gonna dive inside and compute the cross product between the velocity and an up vector, and let's connect that back into the velocity, and see now it's pointing up and down depending out and in both directions depending on where it's going. So let's try the z-axis. Okay, so I like the result here. Everything is pointing outward, and again, that's the result of the dot product, which is the cross product of the velocity, which is aiming this way. Let's try something. This may not work, or it may. So we have the velocity here going this way, the original one, and then we computed the cross product with the z vector, which is pointing this way. That created a plane here, and this is the resulting vector. Okay, so that's how we're getting this guy. But what I want to do is I want to mix between this, the result, and the original one. So let's mix in between them. See, now we're getting some more variations. And I don't want to mix using a constant value. I'm going to create a noise. I'm going to connect that in. And this noise gives us back between -1 and 1. So it goes both ways. See, if we go in the negative as well, it does some cool stuff. So let's plug this in. Let's actually increase the frequency, the amplitude, and let's increase the frequency, maybe just 1. Yeah, 1 is good. Let's see how that improves things. Okay, cool. So these kind of effects are really hard to see with a small amount of points. So what I'm going to do is, I like this, but I'm going to relax the points as much as possible, like that. And in this example, I don't have to use a scatter node. I can just resample them, which is much faster. And I have a predetermined number of points. See now, 14,000, and they are all nicely distributed along these curves. Okay, and let's emit with that and see how it looks. Yeah, and now we have a very specific emission. You can see it there, very straight line, which is cool. And then we're getting a lot of points. So the last thing I want to do is I want to break these guys up a bit. I don't want them to be uniform. And at this level, I don't need the curves anymore. I just need the points. So I'm gonna plug in an add node, delete geometry, but keep points. And now that deleted all the curves. Okay, and we can also do one more thing before we before we resample them. We can convert them. Sorry, here treat polygon as subdivision curves, and that should improve their shape. See how we have sharp here, and it's a smooth curve now. We have the same points, so delete the points. Nice distribution. I'm just gonna add a jitter node and lower the frequency, lower the scale, so that we don't have that very defined line. Something like that. And I'm going to divide this by 2. So we have half of the points. And I'm gonna add a merge node and add this back in. So see, now we have a straight line with points around it, and this is going to break up the source even more. Let's hit play. Let's take a look and see those lines. Those are going to be very, very cool when we render them. We're going to have a lot of material inside. And this is okay. Yeah, I would like to break this up a bit more, but it's fine for now. We can use a geo from SOPs as well and break those points. And let's add another force. So I'm going to copy this, set this to 4, set swirl size to 3 to get bigger details. And I'm going to copy it one more time. Set the swirl size to 6 and increase this to 3. Just change the offset on these guys. And let's see how much points we get after 10 frames, 20 frames. Yeah, I think we can increase this a bit. So let's set this to 1.5. And I'm going to copy the DOP import from the previous nodes to save time, as well as delete this whole section here. Let's go back in. Let's import that. I'm going to delete all the groups. I don't need anything. I'm going to save 120 frames of this portal. Okay, and let's turn this caching off, reset sim, save to disk. We'll have it ready in the next video. Thank you guys for watching, and see you in a bit.